POV Cyrillicletter 456 de AML ya NN ya Gemini 400 feet below the surface of the North Atlantic, a machine weighing 20,000 tons moves through the water in absolute silence. It does not emit active sonar. It does not communicate with the surface. It is designed to be a permanent, undetectable hole in the ocean. Inside its titanium and high-yield steel hull sits the most destructive payload ever engineered by human hands. 16 Trident IID-5 ballistic missiles, each carrying multiple independent nuclear warheads. This is the USS District of Columbia, hull number SSBN 826. It is the lead ship of a new class of ballistic missile submarines built to replace the aging Ohio class. At a cost exceeding $13 billion for this single vessel, it is the most expensive and complex submarine in the history of the United States Navy. Its sole mission is strategic deterrence. It exists to guarantee mutually assured destruction. But a machine of this magnitude cannot function autonomously. Inside this quiet, lightless cylinder, 155 human beings operate in a state of suspended reality. They will spend up to 90 days submerged, completely cut off from the sun, the internet, and their families. Their primary operational directive is to do absolutely nothing, to remain entirely hidden, and to be ready to execute an apocalyptic launch sequence at a moment's notice. To understand the USS District of Columbia, we must examine the intersection of cutting-edge nuclear engineering and the severe limitations of human physiology. We will look at how the Navy feeds, houses, and maintains the sanity of a crew living in close proximity to a nuclear reactor and a doomsday arsenal. We will break down the mechanics of the blue and gold crew rotation, the specific logistical challenges of the Columbia-class design, the psychological burden of the deterrence patrol, and the brutal reality of the fresh cliff. This is the operational truth of the ultimate silent service. The first major shift in the District of Columbia is its propulsion plant. Older submarines utilize a nuclear reactor to generate steam, which spins massive mechanical reduction gears connected to a drive shaft. These mechanical gears are heavy, complex, and produce vibration. The District of Columbia eliminates this mechanical link. It utilizes an electric drive system. The nuclear reactor generates steam, which spins turbines to generate massive amounts of electricity. This electricity then powers a massive electric motor connected directly to the propulsor. For the enemy listening on passive sonar, this makes the submarine virtually undetectable. But for the crew living inside, it fundamentally changes the sensory environment. The low-frequency mechanical grinding and vibration characteristic of older submarines are gone. The dominant sounds inside the Columbia are the high-pitched whine of ventilation fans, the hum of electrical inverters, and the rush of fluid through pipes. The crew lives in a constant bath of white noise. When that noise changes pitch or stops, the crew registers it immediately. Silence on a nuclear submarine is an indicator of a mechanical casualty. The operational life of a boomer crew is vastly different from that of a fast attack submarine. Fast attack submarines hunt. They track adversary vessels, gather intelligence, and operate in high-tempo, aggressive environments. A ballistic missile submarine hides. Its mission is to proceed to a classified patrol box in the deep ocean and vanish. This creates a unique psychological challenge, weaponized boredom. For 3 months, the environment does not change. There are no port calls. There are no surface transits. The submarine operates in a rigid 24-hour cycle of watches, maintenance, and sleep. To prevent the crew from decaying mechanically and psychologically, the command structure enforces a relentless schedule of drills. The crew practices for fires in the engine room, flooding in the torpedo room, and toxic gas leaks. But the most critical drill is the strategic launch sequence. An alarm sounds different from any other alarm on the ship. The crew moves to their battle stations. The captain and the executive officer authenticate the incoming action message using dual safes and classified codes. The missile technicians in the Sherwood Forest, the massive compartment housing the 16 vertical launch tubes, spin up the gyroscopes and flood the tubes with water to equalize pressure. The procedure is executed flawlessly, right up to the final turn of the firing key. And then the drill is secured. The crew goes back to cleaning the floors and eating lunch. They perform this sequence repeatedly, knowing that if the order is ever real, it means the surface world they are defending has likely already been destroyed. Because the submarine must remain at sea as a constant deterrent, the Navy utilizes a two-crew system. The District of Columbia is manned by a blue crew and a gold crew. While the blue crew is submerged on a 90-day patrol, the gold crew is back at the home port in Kings Bay, Georgia or Bangor, Washington. The off crew spends their time in simulators, conducting training, taking leave, and recovering. When the submarine returns from patrol, the handover process is meticulously structured. The returning crew brings the boat into port. The relieving crew takes ownership of the vessel space by space, system by system. A 3-week refit period begins, during which the submarine is resupplied and repaired. Then the new crew takes the boat back out into the black water and the cycle repeats. This system ensures the hardware is utilized to its maximum potential, while preventing the human operators from breaking under the strain of continuous deployment. One of the most significant engineering advancements on the District of Columbia is the life-of-ship nuclear reactor. Older submarines require a mid-life refueling overhaul, a process that takes the boat out of commission for several years, requiring the hull to be cut open to replace the nuclear core. The reactor on the SSBN 826 is designed to operate for the entire 42-year expected lifespan of the vessel without ever needing to be refueled. This drastically reduces shipyard time and increases the operational availability of the ship. However, it also means the crew must maintain the surrounding systems, the pumps, the valves, the electrical grids, to an unprecedented standard of reliability, as the core will outlast the sailors operating it. The logistics of sustaining 155 people for 3 months are centered entirely around the galley. A ballistic missile submarine is significantly larger than a fast attack sub, offering slightly more storage capacity, but space remains a critical premium. The provisions loadout for a patrol is a mathematical puzzle. The ship takes on thousands of pounds of flour, frozen meats, and dry goods. The culinary team faces the fresh cliff just like any other naval vessel. For the first 2 weeks of the patrol, the crew is served fresh salads, tomatoes, and dairy milk. Morale is generally high. By day 15, the fresh produce decays and is discarded. The menu transitions entirely to frozen and canned ingredients. The fluid milk is replaced by ultra-high temperature or UHT milk. This shelf-stable liquid has a caramelized, sweet taste due to the high-heat pasteurization process and is universally disliked, used primarily to moisten dry cereal. Eggs transition from shells to liquid cartons and eventually to dehydrated powder. To compensate for the heavily processed nature of the food, the cooks rely on heavy seasoning, fat, and salt. The artificial atmosphere inside the submarine, which is kept at a slightly higher pressure with lower oxygen levels to prevent fires, actively dulls the human palate. The culinary team must overseason the food to make it register on the crew's taste buds. The most anticipated event of any strategic deterrent patrol is halfway night. Because there are no port calls to break up the 90-day monotony, the exact midpoint of the patrol is treated as a major holiday. The galley prepares the most extravagant meal possible, usually prime rib or steak, baked potatoes, and custom desserts. The wardroom and the chief's mess often serve the junior enlisted sailors. Halfway night is also when the halfway boxes are opened. Before the deployment, families prepare small shoebox-sized packages for their sailors, filled with favorite candies, letters, photographs, and small gifts. These boxes are strictly collected and locked away by the command prior to getting underway. On halfway night, they are distributed. In an environment defined by total isolation, opening a box of stale candy packed by a spouse or a child 3 months prior carries an immense psychological weight. It is a tangible connection to the surface. The District of Columbia class represents a major sociological shift in submarine design. It is the first American submarine designed from the original blueprints to accommodate a mixed-gender crew. Older Ohio-class and Lowe's Angels-class submarines were built exclusively for men, requiring awkward and expensive retrofits to integrate female officers and enlisted sailors. On the SSBN 826, the habitability spaces are designed for privacy and flexibility. The washrooms, known as heads, feature enclosed shower stalls and separate changing areas. The berthing compartments are designed with distinct, secure partitions to allow for proper integration without compromising the operational flow of the ship. Despite these improvements, berthing remains incredibly tight. The racks are stacked 3 high. Each rack is an aluminum pan roughly 74 inches long and 2 feet wide. The Columbia class aims to eliminate the practice of hot racking, where 3 sailors share 2 beds in shifts by providing a dedicated rack for every member of the crew. However, the space inside the rack is still minimal. A sailor has a few inches of depth beneath their mattress to store their uniform, socks, and personal hard drives. A single curtain provides the only privacy available on the ship. When a sailor closes that curtain, protocol dictates they are not to be disturbed unless the ship is in danger. The air the crew breathes is a product of intense chemical engineering. Oxygen is generated mechanically by cracking water molecules using high-voltage electricity, a process that separates the oxygen for breathing and vents the highly explosive hydrogen overboard. Carbon dioxide exhaled by the crew must be constantly scrubbed from the atmosphere. This is achieved using a liquid chemical bath of monoethanolamine or amine. Amine has a distinct heavy odor, often described as a mixture of dirty gym socks, diesel, and ammonia. This chemical vapor permeates the entire submarine. It bonds to the polyester cotton blend of the crew's blue coveralls. It sinks into their hair and skin. A submariner stops noticing the smell after a few days at sea, but it becomes permanent. When a deployment ends and a sailor opens their sea bag in their civilian home, the amine scent immediately fills the room. It is the olfactory signature of the submarine force. Water rationing is enforced, though a ballistic missile submarine has larger distillation capacities than smaller boats. The ship produces fresh water by boiling seawater using the heat from the nuclear reactor. The priority for this ultra-pure water is the reactor plant itself, followed by the oxygen generators, and finally the crew. Showers are brief. The Navy shower is standard: water on to wet the body, water off to apply soap, water on to rinse. Lingering under the hot water drains the tank and forces the next watchstanders into a cold shower, a social offense that is corrected swiftly by the crew. The psychological burden of the SSBN mission is absolute isolation. Surface ships have satellite internet, their crews can check sports scores or read the news. A submerged boomer has zero outward connectivity. To remain stealthy, the District of Columbia only receives data via very low frequency, or VLF, radio waves, which can penetrate seawater. The only communication a sailor receives from home is the family gram. These are strictly limited, text-only messages containing fewer than 50 words. They are heavily screened by the commanding officer and the executive officer. Bad news is routinely embargoed. If a sailor's relative passes away or if a spouse files for divorce, the command will often withhold that information until the submarine is returning to port. The logic is brutal but operationally sound. A sailor standing watch over a nuclear reactor or maintaining a ballistic missile cannot be distracted by grief they are thousands of miles away from resolving. The mission of nuclear deterrence supersedes personal tragedy. This isolation forces the crew to rely entirely on each other. The social hierarchy of the submarine is rigid but intimate. The officers manage the ship, the chiefs run the deck plates, and the junior enlisted sailors perform the grueling physical maintenance. But because they all breathe the same recycled air and face the same existential pressures, a unique bond forms. They know each other's habits, their fears, and their families' names. In the silent service, your shipmate is your primary life support system. Waste disposal requires precise mechanical execution. Solid trash is compressed into dense, heavy pucks and ejected from the ship using a trash disposal unit, which operates like a vertical torpedo tube. The weights ensure the trash sinks to the ocean floor, preventing floating debris from giving away the submarine's position. Sanitary tanks holding human waste must be blown overboard using high-pressure air to overcome the massive water pressure of the deep ocean. During this process, flushing a toilet is strictly forbidden. A mistake during a sanitary blow will cause the pressurized waste to backfire into the submarine, a catastrophic hygiene failure that stains a sailor's reputation for the rest of their career. When the 90-day patrol finally concludes, the District of Columbia receives the encrypted order to return to port. The psychological shift is immediate. The ship goes through a phase known as channel fever. The crew spends hours cleaning the already spotless passageways. Sea bags are packed. The conversation in the mess deck shifts from the monotony of the watch rotation to the anticipation of real food, sunlight, and family. Surfacing the submarine after 3 months is a profound sensory event. When the main hatch is opened in the sail, the influx of fresh air is overwhelming. It smells heavy with salt, diesel from the tugboats, and the organic scent of the coastline. Sunlight is blinding to eyes that have adjusted to fluorescent tubes and low-level red lighting. The physical transition takes days. Sailors often experience mild vertigo as their inner ear adjusts to the lack of the submarine's subtle, constant motion. They sleep poorly in large beds, missing the tight confinement of their racks. They wake up reaching for curtains that are not